Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, where we dive into the juicy details of corporate filings, and sometimes, just sometimes, we find out if a company is aiming for the stars or just trying to keep its head above water. Today we've got a report from DT Cloudstar Acquisition Corporation that has got some interesting moves on the horizon. So, what is the big story here? It looks like DT Cloudstar Acquisition Corporation is planning a major business combination. Basically a fancy way of saying they're getting ready to merge with another company called PrimeGen US. Inc. This is a big deal, and this report lays out all the intricate steps and agreements involved. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, if you are enjoying our ability to translate these dense corporate documents into plain English, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. And hey, we've got a thriving Discord community where we break down these filings even further with a special link in the description below. Alright, let's get straight to it. This is a Form 8K filing, which means it is reporting a significant event that shareholders should know about. In this case, the major event is the entry into a material definitive agreement for a business combination. Think of it as the official announcement that the wedding bells are about to ring for these two companies. The date of this report is the 2nd of February 2026, and that is the same date the deal was inked. The main players here are DT Cloudstar Acquisition Corporation, which is referred to as the parent or DTCs, and its subsidiaries Purchaser Inc. and Merger Sub Inc. And on the other side, we have PrimeGen US Inc., the company they're merging with. Now, before we get into the weeds of the deal, let's quickly look at what DT Cloudstar Acquisition Corporation has on the market. They have these units each made up of an ordinary share and a right trading under the symbol DTSQ. Then there are the ordinary shares themselves, DTSQ, and the rights. DTSQR, it is pretty standard for these types of acquisition companies, often called SPACs, to have these components. Okay, let's get to the core of the filing, the actual Business Combination Agreement or BCA. This document outlines how the two companies will come together. It involves a couple of mergers. First, DT Cloudstar Acquisition Corporation will merge into its subsidiary Purchaser Inc. This is called a redomestication merger, and it essentially changes the legal home of the company. Then shortly after, Merger Sub Inc. will merge with PrimeGen US Inc., with PrimeGen US Inc. continuing to exist as the surviving entity. So, what happens to the existing DT Cloudstar Acquisition Corporation shares and rights? At the first merger, the units will split back into their original shares and rights. The existing DT Cloudstar Acquisition Corporation ordinary shares will convert into shares of Purchaser Inc. This class of common stock, and importantly, the DT Cloudstar Acquisition Corporation rights will become rights to receive 1/9 of a share of Purchaser Inc. This class of common stock, this means the value of those rights is significantly diluted. Here is an interesting part. Purchaser Inc. will also issue warrants called non-redemption warrants to certain shareholders. These people are essentially the ones who didn't ask for their money back when DT Cloudstar Acquisition Corporation went public. There are about 1.9 million of these warrants, and they give the holders the right to buy shares of Purchaser Inc. This class of common stock at an exercise price of $2 per S-share. They become exercisable 6 months after the closing date and for 2 years after that. This is a way to incentivize shareholders to stick around. Now, let's talk about what the shareholders of PrimeGen US Inc. will get. They are looking at an aggregate value of about $1.49 billion in Purchaser Inc. class of common stock. This amount is subject to adjustments based on outstanding warrants and options of PrimeGen US Inc. The exact number of shares will be determined by dividing this purchase price by the redemption price, which is a significant valuation for PrimeGen US Inc. The agreement is filled with customary representations and warranties from both sides. This is basically where each company promises that everything they've said is true and that they've followed all the rules. This covers things like their organization, authorization, financial statements, and compliance with laws. They are essentially vouching for their own integrity and business health before the merger. An important detail here is that all these representations and warranties expire at the closing. This means after the deal is done, you can't go back and sue someone for a broken promise about something that happened before the merger, unless it is a specific covenant that is meant to last beyond the closing. The agreement also lays out what each company can and cannot do leading up to the closing. These are called covenants. They include things like not changing their organizational documents, not issuing new shares or securities, not splitting or combining shares, and not taking on significant new debt unless it is already laid out in the agreement. They also can't make material changes to tax policies or enter into new lines of business without approval. These are all standard controls to keep the companies stable and predictable before the merger. Of course, this deal isn't a done deal yet. There are conditions that need to be met. These include getting approvals from shareholders of both companies, regulatory approvals like antitrust clearance, and NASDAQ listing approval for the merged company's stock. The company being acquired, Primogen US Inc., also has conditions, like ensuring DT Cloudstar Acquisition Corporation. Its representations are accurate, and that there haven't been any major negative impacts on Primogen US Inc. And what happens if things go wrong? The agreement can be terminated if the deal doesn't close by the 26th of October 2026, which they call the outside date. There are also provisions for termination if a governmental authority permanently blocks the deal, or if either party materially breaches the agreement and doesn't fix it. If DT Cloudstar Acquisition Corporation shareholders don't approve the deal, that is also grounds for termination. To ensure the deal moves forward, there are several related agreements. The company support agreement comes from key shareholders of Primogen US Inc., including directors and major holders. They've agreed to vote their shares in favor of the merger. This is crucial for getting shareholder approval. Similarly, the sponsor and insiders of DT Cloudstar Acquisition Corporation have signed an insider support agreement. They're agreeing not to sell their shares before the deal and to vote for it, making sure the acquiring company's own internal circle is on board. Then we have the lock-up agreements. These are for the sponsor and certain company shareholders and directors. For a period after the merger, typically 180 days, they won't be able to sell their shares. This is to prevent a flood of stock hitting the market right after the deal closes, which could depress the price. However, there are ways to get out of this lockup early, like if the merged company stock trades above $12 for a sustained period, or if there is a change in control. At the closing, a registration rights agreement will be put in place. This is standard practice, and means that certain shareholders will have the right to demand that the company register their shares for sale, essentially allowing them to sell their stock publicly. This applies to rights granted to the sponsor and certain Primogen US Inc. shareholders. The filing also mentions a presentation that the companies have prepared. This is likely for investors and analysts to explain the deal and the combined company's prospects. While we can't see the presentation itself in this report, it signals that they're actively marketing this merger. Be aware that this report is full of forward-looking statements. These are essentially predictions about the future, about how the merger will benefit the companies, when it will close, and what the financial performance will look like. They use words like believe, expect, and anticipate. It is crucial to remember that these are just projections and many things can go wrong. The report lists many risks, from the deal not closing to market changes and the ability of the combined company to grow. The companies are urging investors to read their future filings, especially the registration statement on Form S-4. This document will contain much more detail, including a proxy statement for shareholders to vote on the deal and a prospectus for the new shares. They emphasize that these documents will have important information. Finally, the report lists all the exhibits, which are the actual legal documents, like the business combination agreement itself, the forms of warrants, support agreements, lockup agreements, and registration rights agreements. These are the detailed contracts that govern the entire transaction. So, what is my take on all of this? DT Cloudstar Acquisition Corporation is looking to merge with Primogen US Inc. at a valuation of around $1.49 billion. This is a significant transaction, and the structure involves some intricate steps, including warrant issuances and lockup periods to manage the post-merger market. The success hinges on shareholder approvals and regulatory clearances, as outlined in the various conditions to closing. The biggest risks appear to be the standard ones for SPAC deals, not getting the deal done by the deadline, shareholder redemptions, and the inherent uncertainty of integrating two companies and achieving future growth targets. On the flip side, if Primogen US Inc. has strong underlying business fundamentals and the management team can execute on their post-merger strategy, this could be a win. However, the complexity and the usual SPAC hurdles mean investors should tread carefully and wait for more concrete performance data after the merger. Alright, that is our breakdown of DT Cloudstar Acquisition Corporation's latest filing. What is your take on this business combination and what it might mean for the future? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If this analysis was valuable, hitting that like button really helps us out. And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into corporate filings. And remember to check out the Discord link in the description for more in-depth discussions. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Corporate Decoder.